Most people believe that retirement is a countdown to zero. You spend 40 years pushing a boulder up a hill, building a pile of money, and then you spend the next 30 years watching it disappear. You chip away at it every month, hoping, praying that you run out of time before you run out of cash. It is a mindset of scarcity. But what if the math says the exact opposite is true? What if I told you that a typical couple retiring with $600,000 doesn't just have a safe retirement, they actually have a high probability of becoming accidental millionaires? It sounds like a fantasy, or maybe a dangerous gamble. But when you look at the actual data from the last 150 years of market history, a strange paradox emerges. Most retirees who follow the standard rules of thumb end up with more money at age 90 than they had the day they stopped working. Half of the time, that $600,000 portfolio doesn't just survive, it triples. It grows into $1,800,000 or even $2 million, all while the couple is actively spending from it. Today, we are going to look at why the safety-first mindset is actually lying to you. We are going to look at the Federal Reserve data and the studies from the industry's top thought leaders that prove why your retirement accounts are probably more powerful than you realize. Before we uncover the math behind the accidental millionaire, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. There are millions of people living in fear of a zero balance who need to see these numbers. Let's begin with the paradox. Why does the money grow when you are supposed to be spending it? The reason most people are terrified of retiring with $600,000 is that they see their portfolio as their only line of defense. They look at that number and think, if the market drops 20% next year, I am ruined. But this fear is based on a misunderstanding of how the American retirement system actually functions. First, let's look at the invisible safety net. Almost nobody retires on their savings alone. According to data from the Social Security Administration, the typical married couple receives roughly $48,000 a year in benefits. Think about that for a second. Before you even touch a single penny of your $600,000, you already have $4,000 a month hitting your bank account. As research from Andrew Biggs at the American Enterprise Institute points out, this benefit alone puts a typical couple at an income level more than twice the poverty rate for the elderly. This changes the math entirely. You aren't withdrawing to survive, you are withdrawing to enhance. This leads us to the biggest myth in finance, the 4% rule. This rule tells you that if you have $600,000, you can safely take out $24,000 a year, adjusted for inflation. Most people follow this rule religiously because they are told it is the only way to ensure a 99% success rate. But here is the reality check. The 4% rule was designed to survive the absolute worst financial disasters in human history. It was built to withstand the Great Depression of the 1930s and the crushing stagflation of the 1970s. Because we are so afraid of those 1 in 100 events, we live like we are in the middle of a depression, even when the sun is shining. This fear creates what experts call sequence of return risk anxiety. We spend the first 10 years of our retirement being so conservative and so frugal that we accidentally allow our portfolio to reach a tipping point. By the time we realize the great crash isn't coming, the math has already taken over. Your money has been compounding in the background while you were busy worrying. This is how you end up retirement rich, but life poor, holding a massive pile of cash at age 85 that you were too afraid to touch when you were 65. Now, let's look at the math that turns that $600,000 into $2 million. To understand this, we have to look at the work of Michael Kitces, one of the most respected researchers in the financial industry. He conducted a study looking at every 30-year retirement window going back to the year 1870. What he found was staggering. If you follow the conservative 4% rule, you don't just succeed most of the time. In fact, 2/3 of the time, retirees finish their 30-year retirement with more than double their starting wealth, on top of all the money they already spent. Think about that. You are taking out money every single month, yet the pile is getting bigger. Half of the time, the portfolio doesn't just double, it triples. That $600,000 quietly climbs toward $1,800,000. Why does this happen? It's the compounding gap. If your portfolio is invested in a balanced mix of 60% stocks and 40% bonds, your average long-term return might be 7 or 8%. If you are only withdrawing 4%, there is a 3 to 4% surplus left over every single year. That surplus isn't just sitting there, it is compounding. This is where the inventor of the 4% rule, William Bengen, has updated his own thinking. He realized that aiming for 99.9% certainty is actually a trap. It forces you to live a much smaller life than you need to. If you are willing to accept an 80% likelihood of success, which is still incredibly high, the safe withdrawal rate jumps from 4% to nearly 6%. On a $600,000 portfolio, that is the difference between taking out $24,000 a year and taking out $36,000 a year. That is an extra $1,000 every single month. When you combine that 6% withdrawal with your $48,000 in Social Security, a couple is suddenly looking at $84,000 a year in total income. And because of the way the math scales, even at that higher spending level, the median outcome in most market cycles still results in the portfolio growing over time. The accidental millionaire isn't a lucky outlier, they are the statistical norm. This leads us to the most important realization of all. The real risk in retirement isn't running out of money, it is running out of time. If you spend your golden years clutching your $600,000 in fear, refusing to take that trip or help your grandchildren with a down payment because you are waiting for a crash that never comes, you have lost. You have allowed a spreadsheet to dictate your happiness. The data shows us that humans are naturally adaptable. We are not robots programmed to spend exactly the same amount every month, regardless of what the world looks like. If you find yourself in that unlucky minority where the market has a terrible opening decade, you can adjust. You can fly the plane a little lower for a year or two. If this perspective on the 4% rule is changing how you look at your own numbers, let me know in the comments. Are you playing it safe, or are you ready to trust the math? I read as many of your stories as I can. By giving yourself permission to adapt, you unlock the true power of your portfolio. You stop being a servant to a rule of thumb and start being the master of your own time. The goal of building wealth was never to see how high you could make the number go before you die. The goal was freedom. Freedom from the alarm clock, freedom from the toxic boss, and most importantly, freedom from the fear of what if. If you have $600,000 today, you are not standing on the edge of a cliff. You are standing on a foundation that, statistically speaking, wants to grow into something much larger. You don't need $1 million to start living like you've made it. You just need to understand the math, trust the process, and stay the course. If you want to see exactly how your own portfolio might grow over the next 30 years, make sure to check out our previous video on the 3 tipping points of wealth, which should be on your screen right now. It breaks down the exact moment your money starts working harder than you do. Because the accidental millionaire isn't someone who got lucky in the lottery. They are simply the person who stayed in the game long enough for time to do the heavy lifting. Your tipping point is closer than you think. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way out. It helps this data reach others who are still living in financial fear. Thanks for watching.